If you're going through a breakup right now, what are you focusing on? Or if you've ever been through a breakup, what did you focus on after it happened? I'm Talia from Rebel Love, your Let Love Begin Summit host, and today I'm speaking with Kim von Berg. For over 20 years, Kim has been a relationship expert and love coach. She's a communication specialist with a master's degree in humanistic psychology, a certified neuro-linguistic programming expert, a certified coach by the International Coach Federation, as well as a Calling in the One certified coach, having been mentored and trained by best-selling author Catherine Woodward Thomas. I know personally how hard breakups can be, so I am super excited to speak with Kim today about shifting your focus to calling in the one. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I am so honored to be here. Wow. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No worries. So this is such an important topic because I know that this summit is about, it's called Let Love Begin. So letting go of our past relationship and learning to open our heart again. So I know that
Yes,
there's that space between the breakup and the healing, and then the learning to open up again. And I think
yes,
that this topic that we're going to be discussing is super important because when we do eventually open our heart again, we definitely want to call in the right person.
absolutely.
So what does calling in the one actually mean?
Well, I think it's literally means, call in the one as though there's just one. And I always try to explain to people that we're not putting the message out that means there's only one, that we have many beloveds that we're meant to be, that we can match with, in a beautiful way. But it's actually referring also to a 7-step process that Catherine Woodward Thomas created and has evolved over the last, 20 years, I think, actually more than 20 years. And it's a beautiful process that enables us to prepare ourselves internally so that we can call in somebody we can create beautiful love and let go of past patterns that have created something that was really destructive or painful, to be
hmm
able to release all of that and make room for something beautiful.
Yeah, that sounds like a really nice place to be.
Yeah.
um, so I know that after a breakup, we go through like just a ton of different emotions, and one of them is fear. And what role does fear play in calling in the one? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Fear. I mean, there's so many different fears that come up when we've lost someone or we've had to go through a breakup. I myself am a widow, so it felt like a cosmic breakup, that, my beloved of 20 years was removed, not by choice. So I know the pain and and fear and all the like intense emotions that come up. But pertaining to fear, the classic one is fear of being alone. And so, um, I it's usually an indication when we have these fears, especially that we're fearing that we're going to be alone the rest of our life or something, those kinds of fears. It's usually an indication that we're losing touch with our inner selves, and we've kind of alienated ourselves from our inner most precious part of ourselves. So to me, it's an indication that we need to do some internal work to reconnect with the deepest part of ourselves, and not think that we're going to have our needs or all the different things that we're thinking we absolutely need, and that we are kind of convincing ourselves it has to be done through a beloved or having a mate. To know that majority of that we can fulfill that within ourselves, but it usually requires some healing work. So if it's painful, fear is often tapped into other kinds of emotional pain. It's usually an indication that there's some healing that needs to be done, both from the breakup or whatever the immediate source of it, but it often goes way back, like to childhood, the inner healing that needs to be done. So I think all those feelings like fear, anger, what we call negative feelings, are actually gifts because they're reminding us of what needs to be addressed and paid attention to. I almost look at them because I'm an NLP practitioner. We talk a lot about parts of ourselves, and I call them our little kids. Like we have many ages inside of us, and they're sort of knocking on the door saying with fear or something like that, like, hey, pay attention to me. And we do need to give attention to that part and say, what's going on? And fear is like the surface feeling, and then we allow the inner feelings that come up, maybe a whole bunch of different feelings.
Hmm. That's
Yeah.
interesting that you mentioned that. I know that I've done some work myself, and if you, I feel like, and I mean, I guess I can't speak for anybody else, but personally, when I keep ignoring those feelings, like you said, that they're knocking on the door, when you
Yeah.
ignore them, they just keep coming back, you know,
Oh yeah.
and
And then
people,
some.
yeah, yeah. And you want to move forward, right? But really, if you
Yeah.
don't deal with that, I guess baggage is a way of like packaging it,
Yeah.
then you really run the risk of carrying it around with you.
Oh yeah, or it comes out sideways, like you may like hop in the bed with someone that you met at the bar, or you do something like stupid, but it's because we're trying to run away from our feelings, and so it will come back and bite you in the what if you don't if you don't address it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, this is really great that we're talking about this.
Yeah.
So I know that most of the work on calling in the one has to do with, like as you mentioned, ourselves and our inner world. What would be a major area to concentrate our attention on when we're dealing with attachments and or like to a past
Yes,
person?
absolutely. Well, I the wo- that's a meaty question. So I'm gonna figure out a way to do this so it's not an hour talk, But okay, so what I will mention is there's a great resource I would recommend for all your people is the other book that Catherine Wilbur Thomas wrote, which is Conscious Uncoupling. And a lot of the work that I've trained in intensely with Catherine, and right now we're doing something else that kind of brings together conscious uncoupling and calling in the one, which is called the True You Awakening. And so I'm going to answer your question kind of from that viewpoint, which is that it's such an opportunity, as painful as it is, to go through a breakup, because it's an opportunity to see what our patterns are. So obviously something didn't work, and maybe somebody was like cheated on us or did something horrible. And so I'm not excusing that person for doing that, your ex or whatever you want to call your former beloved. But you always want to look back, take this as an opportunity to look back and say, wow, what part did I play? Even if he cheated on me, or even if he did something awful, or he ended up have a personality disorder that, there was no way to live with it, or it could be basically looking like it was primarily the other person's fault. But to harvest that what happened, because we played a part in that, even if it was 2% of what the breakdown and what didn't work. So if we can look at that and learn from it and see what can we do now to do things differently, that is a huge opportunity, because it's going to open up us to something bigger and bigger love and a greater possibility in the realm of experiencing love. And then there's other things. I mean, because like I said, that was a tough question.
Yeah.
There's another thing I want to mention around that, which is um, life doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. So we want to look at the pain that's around what happened, because the pain is going to help us to go back to the very source of the pain. And oftentimes the most horrific part of the painfulness about a breakup isn't the actual breakup. oftentimes it goes way back to our childhood. And let me give you an example. Like it might be, let's say, let's say my husband left me, and it kind of came out of left field, and I felt horribly abandoned. And I'm just giving an example because that didn't happen to me, but I work with a lot of clients that go through this kind of thing. And so I may be left saying, you know, love is not in the cards for me, obviously. Or, I'm saying I might come out with a saying like that, or a belief. I want to explore that. That's actually a false belief, but I want to use that as like the breadcrumb to go back to, where did I first feel that love is not in the cards for me, and that I'll always be left. Let's say I tap into that feeling. Well, oftentimes it's something that happened maybe in the crib, or it happened because one of our parents just up and left or something. So we want to go back to the original source of the pain, and then look at, let's say it was that our dad left or something like that. You want to look at, what did you decide about that as a child,
Mm-hmm.
about yourself? What did you believe about yourself around that? Because oftentimes we create our whole world around our belief systems. So what I'm talking about is looking at those unconscious beliefs around love. And you want to like bring them up and realize how they're false they are, and get rid of them and replace them with what's really true, which is, no, you're not destined to be abandoned all the time. You play a part in it. You create a relationship with someone. You can be conscious next time to their character, so, or whatever else played into you not realizing that this was a cheater, or what. I'm just giving that as an example. Um, but I'm just saying, we co-create everything in our lives. So we want to look at what part we play in it,
Mm-hmm.
including our beliefs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that might be a little bit hard for some people to hear. I know that there's lots of reasons why people might break up, and sometimes people will like, "Well, so and so cheated on me. It's not my fault. I didn't
Yeah.
have anything to play in that." But I feel like this exercise is really an invitation to dive a little
Well,
bit deeper,
let me just say, I'm not saying don't hold that person accountable
for sure.
for bad behavior. So
Hmm.
please don't get me wrong. If somebody really behaved badly, we hold that person accountable.
Hmm. Of
Definitely.
course, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really like that. Like, let's, we're going to have to deal with it anyway. There's not really an
Yes.
alternative. So it's like we may as well take the lesson and progress to the next level.
Yes.
Hmm.
Because, the point of power is in us looking at how we played a part. That's where our power is, so that we can create something new in the future.
Right. I love that. Yeah. So taking your power back, because often I think after breakups, we do feel powerless. So to be
Yes.
able to reclaim that and be like, you know what? I'm worth it. I don't need to be with people who don't honor me and value me.
Right.
And perhaps if someone's going to treat me that way, then that's not the best fit for me.
Yes.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're in an open relationship or you've made that decision with your partner, that's different, something like that. But if you're in a monogamous relationship and there's been infidelity, then that can certainly cause
Well, even
problems.
in polyamory, I mean, I work with polyamory couples too. I mean, we can have it can be just as heartbreaking if somebody leaves, even if you have other lovers, or I mean, because you can get really attached, because
Hmm.
we all have different attachment styles. And if we come from an insecure attachment style, if somebody leaves, even if it's a polyamorous relate, it can be just as devastating.
Hmm. Interesting. I feel like that's a whole nother topic we could
Yeah.
discuss. So
Yeah.
how important is it to visualize a loving relationship in detail in order to manifest it?
It's very important, but I want to add that the longer I've been doing this, the more I realize, and myself included. I mean, I didn't get into this business because I was great at this stuff. It was because I was it wasn't working for me, and I'm like, I got to figure this out. And so,
Yeah.
workshop after workshop, and the next thing I know, I'm a counselor, relationship, but I'm basically, oftentimes we don't know what it is we should be visualizing. So visualizing is really important. I actually I like a term that Catherine Ward Thomas used, which is visioning. And the difference, there's a subtle difference, is that in envisioning, we're imagining ourselves in there, in that vision, and who we would need to be to create such a beautiful vision. So it's not just about visualizing that perfect woman or the perfect guy and the perfect, all the things that we want in that relationship and that spouse, but it's more who we need to be. And also, what does it feel like? It's like the whole experience of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But part of what I guess I kind of caveat to that visioning thing is to learn some basic things about what is a healthy relationship,
Yeah,
to
right.
be able to have some really good things in our vision,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
if we're just saying, oh, the mansion and the this and the pool and the, whatever,
Right.
and we're not including good character or, the foundational things that you need in a healthy relationship, being able to communicate through the tough spots, being able to resolve conflict with skills, things like that. We need to include that in our vision.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very important. I know that there are a lot of people. I mean, I feel like as we as we mature in life, we of course want comforts, the creature comforts, like the house and the car and
Yeah.
all that jazz. But really, the real juiciness of life comes from the quality of our relationships. I think so. You know,
Absolutely.
and if
Oh,
it
yeah.
it doesn't even need to be romantic. So it's also just about like I feel like boundaries, like what am I willing to accept and what am I not willing to accept.
Yes,
So
boundaries are really important.
that could be a
I'm
good
I'm
place to
also a
start.
communication specialist. So my background, I got into this business years ago teaching communication seminars. And, communication skills like setting boundaries, deep listening skills, being able
Hmm.
to track someone to find their own solution and vice versa. Those kinds of things are really important, but even more important, foundational to, those skills and those things that we're talking about for a healthy relationship is who we are. And so to be able to come from our greatest self and not come from kind of a wounded, broken place is is what's needed to kind of create, to be able to learn these kinds of skills that are important for a healthy relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
So what are some of the reasons that you've noticed why some people might be attracting the wrong people to them, and what can we do about it if we realize we're in this position?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've kind of touched on it a little bit already, but I'll on some of the concepts around that. Excuse me. I used to give different talks on that very topic of, why do I keep attracting the wrong or a narcissist, or why do I keep attracting an addict, or why do I keep attracting, what is it about me? I'm like a magnet, whatever, and I have that a lot, that kind of a question when I work with singles, like, why, how do I stop that pattern of, or it's not necessarily the wrong person, but just the wrong thing that happens, like someone adore, this was a pattern of mine after I became a widow 10 years ago, but when I started to get myself out dating, my pattern was that someone would come on really strong and like pursue me, and I would kind of be doing, I don't know, because I think I hadn't fully let go of my beloved deceased partner. But yeah, and so finally I'd go, oh, this person's must be the one, and I give my heart away, and then all of a sudden that person would just completely switch their personality, like suddenly they're mean and nasty and one had a personality disorder, it was like the other side came out when I gave my heart away. So it's like wrong person or bad pattern that you don't want to have to keep re-experiencing. So
Hmm.
the way to stop that. Like I said, I might be kind of repeating myself a little bit from some other things I said a moment ago, but the bottom line is it's where we're operating from. So if we're believing, for example, because of something that happened in our childhood, like for me, it was that I was a mishap, like I wasn't supposed to be there. So I believed I'm not wanted in love,
Mm.
so those kinds of things. If we're operating from that, of course, this is unconscious. We're going to be attracting somebody who's going to reinforce that we're not wanted. Or
Right.
if we think we're damaged goods, if we really believe that because of maybe we were incested or awful stuff that happened, if we believe that we're damaged goods, well, we're going to attract someone who's going to reinforce that we're damaged goods. They're going to keep, pointing out your defects. They're going to be critical. They're going to whatever. So basically, what we want to do is get to the very source of what is that self-identity, in calling in the one, we call it our false love identity, and get to the source of what is that, and realize, you know what, it's not true. It's actually not true. I'm a competent, loving, resourceful adult who's wise, and I have a lot to offer. So basically, we turn it around to what's really true. And we don't just stop there. This isn't just about affirmations. I love like Louise Hay and all that. This is not just about affirming, put it on our wall in our mirror. I'm a good person. Blah, blah. That's good. But it's also looking at what do we do in our lives to reinforce that we're not wanted, or that reinforce we're damaged goods, or reinforce that I'm not good enough. We actually co-create that by the way we live our lives and our behaviors. So we look at how are we basically enrolling people into that belief, because we enroll people into that belief. So we look at that, we identify the types of behaviors and habits and things that even ways of thinking, like something goes wrong, we make a mistake, and then we hear that voice that just, see, you're damaged goods, or, it's like the inner voice, and like become conscious of all that and recreate a new way of being around what's really true, that, you know what, there's nothing wrong with me. You know what, I am wanted by the people that I want in my inner circle. I'm adored and considered precious. Yeah.
So when I listened to you speak, I can't remember where I heard this, but um, someone was talking about when you're in that space of negativity where all of these thoughts are coming up about yourself, and you look for evidence, like you said, you look for evidence to
Yeah.
reinforce them. One bad thing happens, and then you go, oh yeah, see, the
Yes.
same thing. But isn't it interesting that we find it much easier to look for evidence for the bad things, but much harder to look for evidence for the good things?
You're
And
right.
and if we flipped the switch, and if we flipped it around and just said, okay, hang on, what's one good thing I did today? What's one good thing I did today? And where's the evidence? Let's look for the evidence. I said, I gave my coffee maker a really nice thank you and complimented them, and they smiled. Like, it can be like that small, right? And
Yeah.
it's like evidence, right? You did something good. It's tiny, but still it's evidence. So it's about
Absolutely.
recognizing those small things. I feel like I just wanted to point
Yeah,
that out
I
because
love that you said that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all the brain science that's coming out, they say that we're sort of built, our brain is built to look for the negative and to focus. Like, the classic example is that, like, let's say you give a talk, and 1,000 people say they had loved it, they thought it was fantastic, and then one person was really critical. What do we remember? We remember the one
always the one,
criticism.
always the
So
one.
yeah, so it's, our brains are built that way, to focus on the negative and to remember the negative.
Hmm.
And they say that's usually because we were like cave people, thousands of years ago. And if
Right,
we didn't pay attention to the signs of something dangerous, we were dead. We were
right,
lunch for an animal or something.
right.
So So we need to do like you're saying, like really do a conscious effort to retrain our brains.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like first of all, that's so true. It's so true. I heard in one of Brene Brown's TED Talks, she said her husband and her team were like, "Don't read the comments, don't read the comments, don't read the comments." But she said, "What did I do? I wrote the comments." And people are just so, I realized when I saw people like saying nasty things about Brene Brown and all these amazing people that just are such givers, and I couldn't imagine even thinking anything negative, let alone writing it on a post.
I know.
It really made me feel like, okay, well, um, it really doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you never make a mistake in your life. Someone's still going to criticize you, and
Oh,
and
exactly.
like she says, you've got to, don't criticize people unless you're in the arena. So,
Yes, very good point.
so
Yeah.
getting back, I'm sorry, this is such a great conversation. You're getting sidetracked. So I've heard that to welcome in the one, it's important to make room in our environment and space for that person. What's your opinion on that? Is there any truth to that? And so, in addition to sort of preparing our space mentally,
Mhm.
what about our physical space? Does that make any?
Yeah, it is important. It's part one of the things mentioned in Calling in the One as well. It's kind of telling the if it's almost like we have to do our part. I think universe, divine, whatever you want to call it, even quantum physics, it it does, because this is based in metaphysics, this program. You know, we need to do our physical part to kind of show the divine and energetically that we're serious about calling in a beloved. Or I mean, this could be applied to other realms, like if you were trying to manifest more money, or it's not just around love, but we need to do our part, and that's part of the footwork physically, to create, to basically call in and like demonstrate that we're ready to create space. And so we're creating space physically, like getting rid of stuff from old past broken relationships, getting rid of all the paraphernalia around that is a healthy practice to do. And then it's also like creating space inside of us and in our time schedule, because some of us get so busy. It's like the way we deal with the pain is we just get pack our schedule so there's not even an ounce of, yeah. So somebody wants to go on a date, well, a month from now at three
Yeah,
o'clock on Wednesday. you know you're
yeah,
not going to call in a beloved if you don't have the space or time.
right.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Um, yes, thank you, thank you for that example. That's a great example. So I know that taking responsibility for what went wrong in our past relationship is really important to healing and really releasing those toxic ties. What are toxic ties, and how can they keep us stuck?
All right. So I'm forgetting the psychologist that said, and I go by this, toxic ties. You can know if you're in a toxic tie with someone if there's what the acronym is FOG: fear, obligation, or guilt. So if that's a strong, either one of those or all of them are playing in the picture of fear, obligation, and guilt, then you're in a toxic tie with someone. And that's one of the things that are the inner obstacles to drawing in healthy, beautiful love, is if we are having toxic ties or toxic relationships in our lives, and not necessarily with an ex, but it could be with a longtime girlfriend, or it could be with your mom, or anybody. If there's a toxic tie that's operating with fear, obligation, or guilt, that's a drain on you having the capacity to draw in healthy love. So what you want to do, usually the first two things that you can do to address a toxic, oftentimes we're thinking, oh, it's that toxic person, I just need to get rid of that toxic person. Well, that isn't always the case. Sometimes it's the way we're operating in that relationship. And sometimes it's something like, if it's with our mom, you may you may
Mm-hmm.
not have the ability to just completely cut that person out of your life.
Right. That's a
So
great example.
what we can do about it, two things: tell the truth, which is often really tough with someone who's not behaving well or has bad habits around interaction with, or like highly critical or whatever their deal is. Tell the truth and set boundaries. So those are two things we really want to start to incorporate. Now, you might lose someone if you do that. You start to tell the truth, and we're talking the core truth. Like, how is that person affecting us? You tell the truth. And if we lose that person, that's probably going to be a good thing. You know what I mean? So we may have a fear that we might lose that person, but then it might deepen the relationship.
Yeah.
Or it might create even if it's like, let's say it's an alcoholic uncle or something where they have a behavior they don't necessarily want to hang around. So it's creating a way, like with boundaries and telling the truth, that you're going to keep enough space from that person with your boundaries where it's not draining on you. It's
Mm-hmm.
not draining on that energetic field for you to be able to attract healthy, vibrant, beautiful love.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes, I mean, often in my experience anyway, again, I can't speak for somebody else, but people who are toxic, in my experience, are really going through something. So sometimes when you have that conversation, it gives them space to actually go, oh, hey, actually I could
Oh,
use a
that's a
little
good.
bit of help.
Yeah, you're right.
And
True.
maybe they are not great at communicating, so they might not bring it up. But if you acknowledge it in a very loving way, because I also feel like
Yes.
it's very easy to sort of explode sometimes with toxic people, because it's been going on for a while. It's not the first time it's
Yes.
happened. So then you're like, all right, I've had it. That's it. But
Yeah.
if you can be calm and approach it in a loving situation, in a loving way, sorry, then
Yes.
that you can really open up that space and invite the conversation. And like you said, it may not always go the way that you want it to go, and maybe
Right.
the relationship will end, but it's a useful exercise, especially if you love them. I remember having a conversation with a girlfriend of mine who was very negative for a long time, and I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so intense. Every time I'm around you, every single thing is negative. And I ended up bringing it up with her, and I just said, this is becoming a real issue. and
Right.
um, I think she wasn't even aware. And then
Yes.
as soon as I mentioned it, the behavior changed. And I
Oh,
just said,
wow.
yeah. And I
See,
just
you
said,
told the truth.
right. And I said, I really love you and I'm really going to be here for you. But this is actually really affecting our relationship. And I don't want to be left with this. So, let's talk about it. And it really opened up that space. And it was a really hard conversation to have, I have to
I
say.
bet it was hard.
Yeah, it
Yeah, and
definitely
what
was.
you're demonstrating is something I teach my communication seminars is, when you have something tough to deliver with someone where it's like, "Ugh," like you're the best thing, and you did it. I call it a preamble. Like you set the stage where you're helping the person know they're safe. You're going to keep them safe even with a tough message.
Right.
So you acknowledge the good, or you acknowledge the love, or you acknowledge something that you appreciate about them or about the relationship. And then you deliver your message that might be tough. And then you close with what you would love to experience. So, I would love it if our interactions could be more positive focused and future oriented. And, I would love it if, meaning we're not telling them what to do, but um, we're expressing the vision.
Right. And perhaps making some suggestions that they may or may not choose to take on. And I think letting go of the outcome as well. It's not your choice.
Yes.
You're just presenting your truth. And if and I in this particular situation, I know she mentioned she was going through a lot. And so the reason why I didn't mention anything earlier was because I was like, oh, maybe she's just going through a phase, I'll just let it ride.
Right.
But then it was going months and months, and I was like, okay,
Oh.
I have to I have to say something. And it was actually I think what was the most confronting for her was me saying, I'm actually finding myself avoiding you because this is affecting me so much. And then
Oh,
it was like, whoa, hang on. And I was like, and I just noticed that in my own behavior. So I wanted to share that
oh,
with you.
that was beautiful that you did that. Wow.
Hmm. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
tough. It was really tough. But I think, when I have to have hard conversations, I really try to notice my tone of voice, my body language, the choice of words.
Yes.
That's a really important
Beautiful. Wow.
one. Mhm.
Yeah,
Um,
I think what you were describing about your friend, when we're going through a rough time or breakup, or one of the hardest things they say, they've done studies of the brain when people break up, and it's a hard. It's actually the same part of your brain as if somebody dies. So
Makes sense.
it's very really rough to go through. So
Hmm.
people can get kind of stuck sometimes in that process. I mean, I don't know if that was for your friend, but they can get kind of stuck in it's hard to get through that.
For sure. I've
Yeah.
definitely been there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned that you got into this because, things weren't working for you. I think actually a lot of the a lot of the speakers on the summit have mentioned the same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't get into this because I had all the answers.
Exactly.
And also as well, I just want to point out to the listeners that I really don't think there's a one size fits all. I really like to say, take what resonates with you because that's what you're going to remember anyway. So
Absolutely. Yes.
so let's talk a little bit about being needy. What if someone is experiencing being a little bit needy? I know that when you come out of a relationship, you might feel the need to like want to get into another one. Maybe I don't know if there is a too early, but I know that sometimes people can get a little bit clingy. So how can we change being needy and recognize it? And how
Yeah.
does neediness affect calling in the one?
Oh, wow, that's a biggie. That's a question. Okay, which angle? Okay, well, first of all, we don't always know that we're needy. We're it's all. I think a lot of what I've been mentioning is becoming conscious of ourselves, and some needs are important to have in a relationship. We need to have certain needs met. So there's some healthy needs, to have. Like we need people, we need love in our lives, we need connection. So if we're feeling needy, if we're going through a breakup, sometimes it's a gift. Like, hey, man, I've been isolating too much, or I need to go to connect with my friends more. And so sometimes it's a positive thing that we need to acknowledge, but maybe not do it to the extreme where we're putting ourselves in danger, or we're doing something that's not so smart for our being able to have healthy relationships. So um, but as far as how a lot, what I get asked a lot is how do you know if it's like neediness, or like childhood, whatever, clingy, like you said, clinginess, or is it just a healthy need that, hey, we have needs, we need them met.
Hmm.
So we need respect, we need to be validated. Those are healthy needs. So if it's well, first of all, how do you identify? Basically, what you want to do is, first of all, become conscious of a need and go within and like ask yourself, um, how old is the person? How old is the part of me who needs this? That's usually a good way of
Mm.
identifying.
I like that. I like that
Yeah,
question.
and if it's something that's like suddenly you have a flashback of being a 3-year-old when your parents left you alone for a day and a half or something awful, if you have that, then this is coming from a child part of you that needs tending to. But to expect others to tend to it is not going to create a healthy relationship.
Hmm.
It means we need to do our part in fulfilling that need that never got met as a child. But to expect a partner or somebody else to fulfill those needs, that's the needy arena. It's an indication that there needs to be some healing
Hmm.
around. Now, like I said, then there's adult needs that we need to look at and saying, you know what, I need to actually do something about this. I need to take some action to fulfill this need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, this is great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move on to the next question because I want to see what we can cover here. Um, I know how we feel about our bodies plays a really big role in how open or closed we are to developing sexual or romantic relationships with people. What would be some
Yeah.
advice from you for people with low self-esteem or people who have body image issues?
Yeah, low self-esteem is a bigger arena, but I'm going to address more the physicality of what you're of this question. Um, so yeah, it really is important to be able to love our bodies and to feel good in our bodies, to be able to be intimate with someone physically, sexually. And so if we are aware that we're not feeling that, or we have some shame about our bodies, then that's an indication that again, we need to do some healing work, because um, it, we need to be able to feel good no matter, like, it doesn't matter if we feel like we're overweight, or we're whatever people focus on, that they have shame around their bodies. It's like, it doesn't matter, because our bodies are beautiful. When you think about what our bodies do for us every day, it's like developing some gratitude for our bodies. Now, I will use myself as an example. In my teens and 20s, I hated my body. I had eating disorders, and I was on a mission basically to, you know, annihilate my body through anorexia. So I know what it's like when you hate your body, and I had body shame. So there was no way. I shut down sexually because I was starving myself. That's a biological thing that happens. But so I went through a long period of time of doing recovery work around that. I mean, I was in 12-step programs. I had a counselor that specialized in eating disorders and things like that. But so I know the importance of loving my body. Now I'm kind of complaining I'm a little overweight or whatever, that I have certain things that I don't love. I don't like the wrinkles happening in my 50s, or, that kind of thing. But to me, I'll stop myself. I'll look in the mirror and I'll go, oh God, those wrinkles are awful. So I will stop myself and go, I earned those wrinkles. Those are wisdom wrinkles, like turn it around,
Reframe.
turn it around. And so, or one practice that's mentioned in the Calling in the One program is to, when we get to the arena of loving your body, is to just get naked and stand in front of the mirror, and
Mm-hmm.
you find yourself going apart, going, oh, I wish that stomach wasn't so big, or wish this, or wish those thighs, blah, blah, blah. So you go to that part and reframe it and say, I love my thighs because they get me everywhere. Think about someone who doesn't have a leg, you know,
Exactly. Yeah.
like imagine if you didn't have that thigh. So it's reframing it and sending love to
And
that part of
gratitude.
your body. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. And so doing this work again, I keep hearing this common theme of, coming back to doing the healing work yourself so that you're in the best position to actually attract that right partner for you.
Yes.
Actually, and we're up to our last question. If somebody came to you and they'd broken up with their partner yesterday, and we don't know why they've broken up, they are in severe pain, they're holding their hands, holding their heart in their hands, and they're just,
Oh,
yeah, broken from this breakup. What would be your number one piece of advice for them?
well, that's traumatic. And so to me, it's not about advice giving when someone has just gone through something. It's comparable to losing someone to death. And so it's not a place at that moment to come in and say, what you need to do is, or whatever, like that's the worst thing you can do. So it's, to me, in that state, it's helping them be able to, and be a partner with them in holding their feelings, like containing their feelings, because there are going to be huge feelings that are coming up. So teaching skills to them about how to not run away from their feelings that are, because they're like tidal waves, these feelings that come up when you've gone through something like that. So how do you contain these feelings? And like hold them, think of them as like a holding container. So I do have some practices I teach. They're also in Calling in the One, well, in conscious uncoupling as well. So and so that's what I do in the beginning, and then from there we can go into deeper process as people learn how to manage their feelings better.
Yeah, I know it's a tough place to be.
Yeah.
And I know you have a free gift that you're offering our audience today. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I keep changing out my free gift, but this one I decided would be really good. So we just actually put it up not that long ago because of your summit, because I thought this would be a beautiful thing. It's about recognizing where your self-love is at, and deciding what you can do about it. So there's an assessment of how healthy your self-love is, because there's many components to self-love. So there's an assessment in the gift, and then it's like, what can you do? So I have a free audio. It's like a mini workshop, and that
Mm.
I'll be providing an MP3 for. And it basically educates you, first of all, what is self-love? Self-love is a little different than self-esteem, and there's a deeper component to it. So how do you nurture that? Because that's going to be part of the foundation for you to heal from a broken heart and to go open up to something beautiful to happen in your world and to take a stand for that. It's the foundation is self-love. So it's all a free gift around self-love.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'm going to drop the link below so you can get that awesome gift. And Kim, thank you so much for being here today. It's been awesome to
Oh,
have
it's
you.
been a pleasure. Such a wonderful experience to get to hang out with you.
Yeah, you too. I feel exactly the same way. Well,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
I love what you're doing here because it's so needed. Yeah, and I'm hoping this gets to many, many, many people, because this
Me
is
too.
so important, the work that we're looking at right now.
It is. It is. And I
Yeah.
know that unfortunately breakups tend to touch most people I know. In fact, I'm not sure if I ever have met anyone who hasn't. Oh, maybe actually I have met one person who hasn't ever broken up. So it does touch, a lot of the population. So it's very relevant. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate you.
Thank you, Talia.